It is lovely to spend time with you. Welcome to tonight's broadcast. Now, tonight we're talking about a very important topic, and that is how to manage your emotions. I don't know how many of you feel like, yes, I can manage my emotions well. I don't need this topic. Yes, right. Great stuff. Please let me know how you're doing it. Now, it's something that we all struggle with. But just something about managing, about matters of the soul. It's a non-profit organization where we help you to develop your emotional intelligence through Christian psychology media content. Now, when looking at emotions and how to manage them, I will be giving you some practical insights tonight, and also some of the latest research and from psychology, and then biblical insights, which I think is very interesting. And I loved preparing for this, and it was lovely for me. And you know how this works? Every time I'm preparing for a talk, I get tested. So I go through various tests. It's so interesting. In any case, so I've had ample chance to manage my emotions the last week and to deal with this. So I've really been tested this week with managing my emotions. But I've seen that all the time. When I talk about road rage, I've got a heavy week on the road and those things. Okay, so I don't know if you've liked our videos yet before, or subscribed to our channels. We've also got a YouTube channel, Matters of the Soul. Please go and subscribe and like and follow. You know, the more followers we have, the more abilities we gain on these platforms, and the wider audience we can reach. So please assist us in that way, and help to share the videos with people that you think will benefit, and spread the good news. Okay, great stuff. So tonight, let's kick off. What is managing your emotions all about? What is it? You know, the clinical word is emotion regulation. That means you have the ability to affect your own emotional state. So how you are feeling, what you are thinking, but especially your way of feeling and dealing with the world. And it's that ability on how to regulate, you know, laws and those things regulate our behavior, tells us what we should do, how to do it. But in psychology, regulate also means to manage it, to work with it, to practically put it through a process. So you take the steering wheel and you drive the car. You steer it in the direction you want to go. So it is, whether it's positive emotion or what we'll call negative emotion. In strict psychology, we don't see it as positive or negative, because that judges it, and then you feel guilty about feeling certain feelings and all those things. But for the sake of simplicity, easier emotions to express, and difficult emotions, or positive and negative then. So it is the ability to influence your emotions, and what you're going to do about them, how you're going to express them, when, where. And some emotional control also is automatic. You've learned it so well over the years that it comes, you know, before you find yourself, you are screaming. Before you can stop, you've just been screaming like crazy. So that is the learned behavior. You've dealt with this for years, and you're used to it. Your brain's formed a path, and you're screaming at people. So you need to relearn how to manage your emotions. Now, I'm also going to talk from a Christian point of view, which is very interesting stuff that you find there, and I think you'll enjoy this talk. Okay, so as I'm looking at emotion regulation, it involves three basic things. It means that your emotions will lead to certain actions, meaning you act on your emotions. Or your emotions, what you're triggering actions, and you're stopping yourself from acting on your emotions. Or where we'd like to get to is a place where we regulate, and we decide, the clinical word is we modulate our responses. That means we work with how we are going to act. So our emotions trigger certain things and we want to act in a certain way, but then we have a strategy that stops us, prevents us from just acting out that emotion. The children are not listening and suddenly you find yourself screaming, and then your guilt kicks in. We call it the guilty parental ego. Starts talking to you and says, "Cease, man, how could you?" In any case, so obviously the third way to modulate your responses, to figure out a way on how you're going to filter this and that's the best way. And that obviously talks about emotional development, emotional psychology won't talk about maturity because it has some judgmental element to it, that if you're not mature, you're immature, you're stupid. But in Christian view, we talk about spiritual maturity, not that the one person is better than the others. It's a process of development. So the word contains more of a developmental meaning. But the idea is that you allow the Lord and you allow yourself to grow and to grow through circumstances. If you find yourself reacting the same way year in and year out, beep, 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 that means you've not attended to that area to allow yourself to figure out what is going on here so that you can grow. You can't be 40 years old and still be losing your temper 3 times a day. Okay, I'm not going to be giving you some schmackaroos tonight, so don't worry. So you are bombarded by things every day that can elicit or can, stimulate emotions with you. And lots of those things that stimulate emotions are not even worth reacting to. But what happens is we tend to either be sensitive to those and we're irritated we get to a place where we're irritated with loud noises and the children screaming. We're like one of those magnetic fields that attracts all the little pieces of metal, and we get overwhelmed by these things. So there's a sensory overwhelming of stimuli, but sometimes we hook some things and we work with some emotions that irritate us and some things that and then somebody does something and we flip. Okay, so what we'd like to get to is to a place where you're filled with the Spirit, and we'll talk about that, and acting from a place where you are actively aware of your emotions and focusing on it and dealing with it, and that you have some tools so that when you're in the crisis moment that you don't just jump and do stuff and take out the AK-47 and shoot a few rounds. That's not the way to express how you're feeling. Any case, we heard of a guy who was so angry at his, but I'll talk about anger management next week. Let me not give you that one. Just wait for it. Any case, but he acted on some anger in a very hilarious way. But sorry, I'm going to tell it to you next week. Okay, but so it's in clinical words, it's a filter or a modifier that just says, listen, beep, 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 don't do this, do that, don't do this. It helps you. And so lots of studies show that if you can manage your emotions, you'll not be at risk or your risk for depression lowers significantly. So if you're able to work with emotions especially those strong emotions of sadness, anger, fear, worry, those things that we do, the way we feel and interpret emotions affects the way we think and how we decide and how we coordinate our actions day to day. So the way we feel and what we do with our feelings has a lot to do with how you're going to live out your day. And being a Christian, I'd like to live out the way the Lord wants me to live out. And knowing the Holy Spirit, I'd like to experience Him and to live under His control. So you've got a relationship going there where you submit. But we're going to get to that. Okay. So if you have poor emotion regulation skills, you'll most likely be going up and down this roller coaster, and you'll fall prey to all kinds of moods, and your actions, what you're going to do and how you're going to react will always be dependent on your emotions. So you'll always be reacting on what you're feeling. So you'll be, in a sense, feel out of control. So you'll feel like, I just don't hope that we cross paths today, because if he crosses my path today, I'm gonna wring his neck. That kind of thing. So you rather not go there. In any case, but a well-regulated person, on the other hand, they have a balance between what they're thinking and seeing it, and what they're feeling and acting. I mean, it's as fresh as last night. I was tired, and I was sitting with this and preparing as well, and the last preparations, and I had a lot of things to do for today, so I was under pressure. And I remember my wife asking me something, and immediately I felt a surge of frustration. And for a moment, I wanted to act on the feeling. And then a whole host of stuff kicked in. So I'm going to help you to have all of that host of stuff kick in. And then I immediately went on it's like a train that just crossed onto another rail, so that I don't go on that one, because that one's bent on destruction. And it's going to take me down the cliff, baby. Not on the other side. I'm not going to have a nice view from there. Okay, so what happens in your brain when you're managing your emotions and stuff? So there's stuff outside there that's stimulating your brain, and your brain has this amygdala, the emotion regulation part of your brain, and in the emotional center, the limbic system, and there you have the hippocampus that stores memories from how you've handled all these things in the past. Your amygdala says, where's the danger? And you see your husband walking on that white carpet of yours with his muddy shoes, and immediately your amygdala says that, and you feel angry, and you just want to, immediately your amygdala says, danger. Somebody is ruining your carpet, and your thinking goes and says, okay, no, wait, act. Just scream it out. That is terrible. And you forget all the consequences that your behavior will have and all those things, and you just let it rip. But it becomes a fight and flight process. So meaning your brain is activated. So you actually need to train your brain as to what is really dangerous. The funny thing is that there are rarely events in life where you should explode and lose control. There are not really. Now, I have lost control. I was in a motor vehicle accident, and we were very nearly killed. It was like split seconds. So the car's written off, and I saw the car approaching and smashing into us at 120 kilometers an hour, and I just got out of the way. So we were, and as I exited the car, I was livid. So I lost control there. I was in shock, but it's good that there was a 20-meter gap between me and the other guy, because I would have wrung his neck. Suddenly this body becomes He-Man. Okay, but in any case, now, and for a few moments I was screaming, and then something kicked in. So the amygdala, I went into a fight response out of shock. Okay, I didn't wring anybody's neck, I didn't attack anybody or that, but I was in shock. But meaning there are not a lot of situations where yes, it's the best thing now to lose control here. So it's actually better to have a distanced approach from any situation. I can't really see any situation where it's beneficial for you to lose control, not even in a war situation. If you're a soldier, you need to keep your wits about you when you're in that war. You need to, under fire, keep your focus. So you can't just act on that emotion so rarely, but that doesn't mean emotion is bad. As we said last time, emotion management is here, emotional intelligence is here. And in this circle between the two you will find that they play on each other. If you develop your emotional intelligence, part of it is developing your emotional management. And that will make your emotional intelligence higher, which will then benefit your emotional management. And so it goes. So we will also look at Jesus now. He approached strong emotion. Now, I'm not saying strong emotion is bad and you should never feel it or do anything about it. No, it's just really letting rip. I really think it's really beneficial. Okay, so what we'd like to do is to create a space between feeling and acting. So there needs to be some kind of river that goes, that you first have to get onto this little boat and cross this river onto this on this ferry before you can act. So during this time here, you've got time to calm down and think and decide and make a plan and then act. Does it make sense? So you're not just going to jump on the bandwagon and let rip, man. The Wild West. Okay, so the greater that gap becomes, the better it is for your emotional health and wealth and for wealth. Well, you'll probably have it's emotional wealth. Yes, that's a new word. In any case, so you'll become emotionally healthy and you'll benefit other people. So if you are a person who's well regulated, you will find that your relationships benefit. Because other people are not damaged by your outbursts or your silent treatment for months or your whining. I am the only one who's being hurt here. You hate me. No, just be joking a bit. But it is, we get into those states where when we don't manage our emotions effectively, we are either blaming others and attacking them and feeling like this victim. We're either aggressive, or we're whining and complaining, or we're silent and moping, or we get to a place where we're just unstable in our reactions. So people never really know how we're going to react. So we're unpredictable, and that makes us unsafe. So if they want to tell you something, it's not going to sit so lacquer with you, and you just and you go on this rant, or you're nasty and you bite at them. I mean, what are people going to do? Naturally, they'll draw back from you. So that breaks the trust. And now we say, and you know what some people then do, people that struggle with emotional management, they say, they're just oversensitive. They're just so sensitive, they can't handle this. No, you're not controlling your emotions. You don't really know what healthy emotional life looks like. So you think this is healthy. No, it's not healthy. It's like people who, if you have a water that's running water, and you've had that for years in your house, suddenly you have to move to a place where you have to go to the river to go and fetch water. It's going to be a huge change for you. There's a huge difference between that. Now, I'm not talking about, we'd love for everybody to have running water, but this is the same. If you've lived for years, this becomes your norm. And once you start developing this, you realize, hey, I've got a responsibility towards the Lord, myself, and others in how I manage my emotions. I can't just go around looting like the looters. Any case, can you pick up? I've got some Sweebrand about the looters. Okay, any case, there we go. So making just going and ripping into other people because you've got feelings that bother you. Okay, so I'm going to give you 6 useful emotional regulation skills. Okay, and then I'm going to give you a lovely picture that I think you will remember. I don't think you will forget it. It's like some things you just never forget. And I hope this is one of them. Okay, so self-regulation, then it's pausing and those things. So if you want to, first of all, start with, why do you want to manage your emotions? For a Christian, it is because the Lord loves me and I love him, and I want to be a window to display the Lord and his love. Now we'll look at Jesus. He did stand up and he did show strong emotion. So we're not allowed to show emotion, but I'd like to be a person that has the fruit of the Spirit, that is self-control. Galatians 5, you have self-control. You'll see the fruit of the flesh, sinful nature is, where we just lash out and have anger outbursts. And I'm not talking about serious depression or mood disorders or stuff. I'm talking about people who struggle to maintain, to control themselves with emotional expression. And that's almost everybody have their moments. So where we explode and where we don't, we struggle to show love and kindness and gentleness and patience. We rather pounce and fight. Okay, so self-awareness, it all starts there. When you become aware. So what does the Lord do to the disciples? He many a times gives them feedback. So feedback from other people around you, feedback from your own behavior, from viewing your own behavior. Those things are important. Noticing that and then not just dismissing it and saying, I'm like this. That's just how I am, or I'm terrible. Bounce on yourself, Move your anger from bouncing on the others to bouncing on yourself. That's also not going to help, because what it's just going to do is just frustrate you more and hurt you more. It's rather getting to a place where you can feel your emotions. That's the number one. We want you to feel it, and then we'd like you to name it. So if you're feeling frustrated, some people say, I hate that teacher. The children, no. You feel angry. That's what you do. So we'd like you to feel your emotion, give it a name, and then we'd like you to express it. We're going to get there. So instead of that, we'd like you to just first of all, become aware. So that is, you are exploring what is going on inside of you. So it's a look inside as well. You're recognizing stress. What am I feeling in my body? I remember somebody once told me, it's like the world is on my shoulders. It's pressing down on me. They could actually feel the pressure of the stress in their shoulders. So it's about recognizing stress in your own life. Where is it in your body? What is it doing to your mind? What is it doing to your feelings? What I used to do years ago is I wouldn't recognize these things and I would just go on. So I might be like one of those woolen, blankets that just pick up the dead grass. You go put it here in the South African winter, you go put your woolen blanket on the grass outside, and afterwards, it's full of this grass everywhere. And it's the same with somebody who doesn't pick up, they're not aware of, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What's going on in my body? What's going on in my mind? Like last few days, I recognized that I'm feeling tired. I've had a very intense 7 weeks behind me, and it was intense on an emotional level. So I recognized that emotional tiredness, and I'm now taking steps. Okay, so, and then ask yourself as well about how do you usually respond to stress? What do you usually do? Do you withdraw? Do you, like me, just dismiss it and just go on bulldozing over life, just absorbing stress? Or do you stop and ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And then we need to also look with self-awareness at what has worked for you before. So become aware of your strategies, your coping mechanisms, your feelings, your thinking. We'll get to thinking a bit more later. But it's also about what has worked for me in the past. Why has it worked for me? You remember when I had, that was a successful moment. I experienced intense frustration, but I did this and this and this, and it worked. I did not flip out. I did not throw my mother with the microwave. I actually had a client who did that. Okay. Yes. Goose. Okay, so it's not really funny, but it's funny to me now. Okay. Forgive me. Mindful awareness is also a bit more of exploring and identifying all of the aspects in your life. So sometimes that is also a pause moment, and we'll look at that a bit more later, where you simply just, you stop and you take a breath. So you're upset now, you're angry. The first thing is the red light comes on. The traffic light in South Africa, the robot. Red, yellow, green. So the red light says stop, 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 stop. The yellow says think. What is going on here? Become aware. Become aware. Oh, I'm frustrated. I'm angry. And the green says go. But we want to extend that yellow light so that the guys can skip over. No. The traffic stop, just go, it's yellow. No. We'd like to extend the yellow so that you can get to a place of thinking and becoming aware and remembering and initiating some relaxation and maybe even intervening with something like getting away. Okay, so one of the things you'd like to do when you are stopping yourself is to withdraw. Just a week ago, I did a similar thing. I was upset at something my wife said. Yes, I do. Got a perfect wife, but she did say something that upset me. I was upset. And I immediately, I did not do this in the past, but this, at least then I did it. I withdrew and I came and sat and quieted myself and took a while. And then I started working through some questions to lower that emotional intensity before I just run, and create a whole fight that ends up damaging myself, her, hurting her, creating tension, lots of stuff. I just withdrew, so it was calm. I didn't, but I should have told her I'm withdrawing now. So that's what I can add to it. I have done it in the past where I say, I'm feeling upset, I'm going to withdraw now. And there I took breaths, and even if you can lie down so that you can start to relax, get out of that fighting mode. If you remember from from a stress talk I did, get into the parasympathetic nervous system, out of the sympathetic fight and flight, get into the relax R&R nervous system, the rest and relaxation one that calms you down. And there you start praying and you start talking to the Lord. And I'll give you some wonderful insights from the Psalms as well on how you can do that. Okay, so as you're doing that, sometimes you need to distract yourself and you need to get to a place, you should get to a place where it's outside of the initial stimuli, so the stuff that's upsetting you, the children that's all over, you excuse yourself, you leave. It's better that you stay away for 10 minutes and you lose 10 minutes of school time, or that you stop go drive, stop at a safe place and just take a few moments to just calm down than just acting and going with this emotional roller coaster, because that is like a river that takes you. You're out of control then. You progressively lose control as the emotions escalate. And because especially if it's in a fight with somebody else, you're both going to lose if you start acting on the emotions. The screaming match does not usually result in mutual understanding and peace. It usually results in mutual anger and frustration and resentment. Okay, so one of the third skill is cognitive reappraisal. That means seeing it in a different light, looking at your situation differently. So that's the idea. That's what we'd like to create with this space, is to take a break, get yourself out of the situation, and then give yourself time to relax and to think so that you don't make extra problems. And there you can use wonderful techniques. My technique, the first thing that I'd like to do is, as I'm becoming aware of my body and what I'm feeling, I call it, I check in. Where am I? I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that. Why am I upset? That's my second question, to try and pinpoint it. What specifically upset me, to isolate it. And then to try to guide my thoughts away from that blaming stance. She said this and that hurt me and that's her fault. No, she did say something and it hurt me. And what exactly was it that hurt me? It's not she hates me and I now hate her. No, that's taking it to the extreme. Some isolated thing there happened. Now, and I'm then ask myself, why am I upset about that? Why do I think about it? I don't agree with it. You can say that. Or you can say, it is, I'm feeling upset about it. I'm feeling upset. I don't agree with what she said, and this is what I didn't like. It was the way in which she said that hurt me. How do I feel about that? I feel hurt. I feel upset. Okay. Or because sometimes people go, yeah, I'm no longer valuable, or she doesn't love me at all. Now, I'm giving this in the context of a relatively healthy relationship, in the context of a relationship where there's been years of fights and resentment and stuff. That anger builds up like a volcano. So if you then take out a 10-minute timeout, it doesn't really help because you hate that person, or you are so hurt by so in a context of abuse or severe relationship trouble, these simple techniques are still helpful, but much more intervention is needed. Okay, so we're talking about severe case there. I'm talking about a moderate, that's in the middle, or a mild case. But usually when it's severe, you also need these strategies because, you need to stop this runaway train sometime and then get to a place where you can calm down and get additional help from the outside. Okay, so your idea is to create this place so that you can start to think, and you create alternative thinking ways for yourself by doing what we call either thought replacement or thought questioning. You start to question yourself. Like, I would stop myself from going into all kinds of either victim thinking, like she doesn't love me, it's her fault, or no, my question is, what is her share and what is my share? And I also ask that in prayer. I immediately acknowledge the presence of the Lord, and I start to talk to him. It's not me sitting there trying to just figure this out. The Lord is there. And I've experienced his presence many a times, and then I ask him, and I open myself up to his inputs. Now, I'll get to that as well a bit later. Okay, so when you're there in the presence of the Lord, there you're sitting and you're going through the thinking, the questions, and you ask him for what does he think is going on. Now, you need to learn to hear his voice. But when you're so upset and you justify yourself, that kind of thinking makes your anger go even worse, because now it's her and it's not me and I didn't do this. And so what you're doing is you're just deflecting your own responsibility and just pointing and venting all your anger and redirecting it at that person. So that's not going to work. So justification won't work. Self-justification, exploration of what is going on, yes, and acknowledgement of their share and your share, and understanding. That'll work. Okay, and what you can also do is place yourself in the other person's shoes. Situational role reversal. Okay, so you put yourself in their shoes. Man, this takes a lot of maturity. So if you're in any way, if you want to become emotionally well-regulated and grow, these are the skills that you need to develop. And you can see that this also develops. This just honors the Lord if you do these things as well, because you are not just allowing yourself to be the victim and the other person the perpetrator. Okay, so you've now, in that time, you've now acknowledged your feelings. You become, I'll give you a quick stress relief just a bit later on, but you've given your feelings a name, you've accepted it, you've acknowledged it. You're even facing it and feeling it, because some people struggle with actually doing that. That's why they avoid it. If they're going to feel their emotions, they feel overwhelmed. But it's just initially. Later on, you'll get used to feeling. And you've asked yourself the thinking questions, the thinking about feeling questions. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And another thing you can also do is ask yourself then, are my thoughts accurate? Am I seeing this from the perspective that I'm sitting with here? Is it accurate? And then, is it biblical? Am I acting in a biblical way? If you remember last time when I spoke about that formula, you ask yourself, is this anger of mine justified fully? And if I'm not sure, I ask the Lord. And if I'm still not sure, I'll check with my mate. Now, if your mate hates your guts, that's the severe one. We'll look at it later. So, and then you've asked yourself what your share is. You've done role reversal. And then you can ask yourself, what can I do about the problem? Now, people will say, shucks, should I do this with all my emotions? No, you're not going to do that with all your emotions. Otherwise, you'll be sitting in some room most of the day. Now, sometimes if you practice these skills, it happens quickly. these things happen quickly. But initially, to learn to ride a bicycle takes time and effort. But later on, it becomes a very quick learned process. And it is worth the commitment and effort that you put in initially. I just want to say to you, emotional management, emotion regulation skills has huge benefits to it. It just blesses your relationships at work, in your family, all over. It just limits the amount of unnecessary conflict that you enter into. I mean, screaming matches and those things. So it is just worth really attending to this. But you're watching this video. Why am I telling you this? Okay, adaptability is the fourth nice skill. So when you have emotion regulation, that means you actually increase your ability to handle life's changes, like COVID and all the changes that's thrown upon you. If you get sudden changes, you're able to evaluate it. You can adapt to the new circumstance quicker. And so it's a wonderful thing. Otherwise, you feel bogged down by all these stressful emotions quite quickly, and you'd like to avoid them or then destructively react to them, and that'll just hurt you. And a fifth skill is self-compassion. That means you set aside time every day. You have quiet time. I have time with the Lord. And I also take a few moments every day where I have moments when I just break. And I take moments to give my mind a break. And I know Caroline Leaf talks about a 20-minute brain break. That's a lovely skill as well, to really give your mind just some space. And setting some time aside to also consider your reactions. Now, some people take it sometime once a week. But my daily time with the Lord is wonderful for this. And I talk to the Lord. We'll get to all the things you can do there as well. But there you can do, say thank you. You can have a gratitude journal. You can affirm to yourself certain truths and valuable positive words as well. And acknowledge certain weaknesses that you have and things that you're struggling with and how you want to deal with it. And actively try to relax. Some people say, but I don't have an hour. Yes, you don't have to use an hour. You can use 5 minutes initially. Later it's 10 minutes. Just take a few moments. Just land. Just try to be present. And then a sixth skill with emotional regulation is emotional support. That means to recognize that you need other people and that other people need you. But it is also to be honest about your feelings and to talk about them with others. That gives you a lot of support. That's where the body of Christ comes in, to love one another. And the love that you receive there lowers your frustration and your anger and your feelings of being alone and lonely in that situation where you're struggling with intense emotions. And it's also not a shame to see a therapist. I see myself every day in the mirror. I'm a therapist. I see a therapist every day. So I'm seeing one every day. Okay, but you want to create that shield, as it were, and to work with your emotions. Now, what about when you're really, really, really upset? Then you need to do that quick stress relief things. Instead of so you need to now focus. So I did say you need to withdraw and to do all those other things. That's also true, but you can add a few things into that toolkit and to say, listen, the way I get myself out of my emotional mind into ground myself, as it were, in this world around me is also to use my senses. Now, what I do is I go into nature, into the garden, I escape a bit and I go and just sit, or I stand there and I listen to the birds, use my hearing, look at their surroundings around me and actively notice them. And actively notice what I'm smelling. Don't go near the septic tank. Go near the flowers. And actively use my smell, my sense of feeling. And if you have something to taste, if you can eat a narchi or an orange or something, takes your brain out of this emotional state and just relieves you. And then you can start with those questions and pray and talk to the Lord. It's no use waiting, being in the situation. If there's no way for you to escape the situation, you're trapped in this car with people on the way to Cape Town, it's no way getting out of this, or you're on this train or whatever, then you excuse yourself for a few minutes. You close your eyes and you start to pray and try to be aware of what's going on. What are you feeling and thinking? I try to steer my mind to the Lord, because my mind, if I'm really upset, I get these images of, and that doesn't help. So that just provokes me to become more angry. So what you'd like to do is to try to direct my thoughts to calming thoughts, to the Lord. Try to have calming images. Take deep breaths. I also like to pray in the Spirit, and to use that as a way to redirect. And I would even worship in my mind, because immediately that opens up my spirit life, and I worship and I surrender myself to the Lord. So it's a wonderful way of grounding and then just getting that handle on the emotions. Now, there are a number of ways that people typically react to emotions. They either suppress them, that means they press them out of consciousness. No, I'm not feeling this. They do it for short term, 3 months or whatever, or 13 years or whatever. They suppress emotions. Sometimes I used to suppress emotions so deeply that I did not know that I had them, which was quite frightening to me when a psychologist helped me to realize that I was extremely angry back in the day. Or you can deny that you have. Now, they can work together, but just denying your feelings, or denying the intensity of the feeling, or even denying the effect of the feeling on others. That's typical of some styles. They deny that they have hurt you, or you've just been, or this is just the way they are, or they are difficult people. That's, people find it difficult to deal with them. That's a way of justifying their behavior. So it is, but denying your feelings. There is a way, and I spoke about this during the grief program, Living with Loss, that temporarily sometimes we need to deny certain feelings, or we oscillate and move between denial and intense experience and handling that. That is okay temporarily, and suppression is also sometimes okay temporarily, but it's not the best way to handle emotions, and it's definitely not the long-term solution. Again, explode, obviously, or feeling it deep and genuine and then expressing it. You can temporarily shelve emotion, and that's a nice skill. I spoke to a client about that today, about recognizing your emotion, acknowledging it, and then hooking it here onto it's like a key holder or something. You temporarily shelve it. You know it's there, you're not suppressing it, you're not denying it, you just temporarily, you're acknowledging it, but you're not dealing with it at the moment. You're postponing it, and you'll deal with it at that time. Another thing is to then, as you're in prayer, you bring it before the Lord, and there are important things here, is to submit your will to the Lord, because if you're going to fight with your will there, you're most probably going to make your feelings worse, because your thinking affects what you feel, affects what you do. You remember the cognitive triangle? Your feelings are fueled by your thoughts, and they're also fueled by your behavior. So if you act on angry thoughts, then your thoughts and your behavior, your actions, actually fuel your emotions. That's why you become more angry. So when you start throwing the stuff, that's when you're going to get more angry. And no, you're not hitting the pillow and feeling better. Yes, that's a bit of redirecting, but you need to actually learn more effective skills in how to express the emotion and deal with the actual problem. Okay, so your emotions can actually help you. Now, what else can I ask myself when I'm so upset, or afterwards when I've calmed down? I can ask myself, where does this come from? Does it have a root in the past? Maybe, do I have resentment against this person? Am I feeling rejected? Is there some trauma maybe? Sometimes you don't know that. You need to go to a therapist to also help you figure that out. But it's important to make sense of that, especially if it's a pattern that repeats. What you can do as well is when you're really upset, some way to channel the emotion is to write it down. It's so beautiful when it's outside of your mind on a piece of paper. That paper has a lot of power, and once you write it down, it's as if it just gives your mind some relief. So it's as if it has actually said it. You can. Now, I'm not saying you curse the person there that they'll never be. No, but you write out what you're feeling and why you're feeling this. Another way to express emotion, some people find it helpful to create something like artwork or music or woodwork. Or that's a way. Now, that's not in the moment. You can't go and grab the brush and run and say, I just want to paint now. No. We rather work with trauma in that way and deeper pain and those things. Obviously, exercise does release some tension and it relieves some stress. And I use that as well. And that's also a way for me to help me to manage my emotions, is to relax my body. You stress it and then you relax it. And then counseling, therapy, talk, 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 talk. And therapists have wonderful ways of teaching you, also with your unique temperament and personality style, to deal with your emotions. Okay, so I'm going to give you a formula now, a nice way that I'm crediting Inc.com for this. And they have, I read this on their website and I just thought, this is nice. Okay, so, when you use your phone's music player or another music player, they have a number of things that controls that you can use to control the music. Now, there are a wonderful 7 ways, and there might be more ways that you can control your music. So we're going to use that as a way to look at your emotional control. Okay, so your first one is pause. This is a strategy to help you manage those intense emotions. So, when you hit pause on music, with the music, it stops the music, obviously. So it's the red light. It is stop. So you pause. And that prevents you from now saying something that you're going to regret and doing something that you're going to regret. So it limits the damage. For instance, just before you type out that WhatsApp and you want to send it, nope, you pause. You go out of WhatsApp and you just wait. What you can also do when you pause is you delay. You say, okay, I'm feeling all of these things and I'm writing it down, but I'm going to delay sending this or delay saying this. I'm going to create what we call maneuvering space. That means I'm creating space before I act. Before I act on my feelings, and I'm going to create space. So, and that space saves you. So once you're feeling you're out of control and you feel like these emotions are surging, you immediately take a pause. That's also when you withdraw and you can leave if it's possible. Go for a short walk, you excuse yourself. You don't storm out of there and say, I don't care. Push, hit the door, slam. No. You excuse yourself. Try to leave in a peaceful way, because the way you also leave also sets the tone for how you're going to think this thing through. If you leave in a stormy manner and you're so angry and you're the victim, you're probably going to get back angrier. No, rather, the pause button has to happen there. But that's something you need to decide beforehand, because you've got values. You've got a relationship with the Lord. You know that emotional regulation is important. You know that if you're not going to think this through, and you're going to cause more damage. Now, if you don't believe that, just go and remember some times when people screamed at you and said nasty things and how that made you feel, and think of how you would have wanted them to react, and then act that way. The golden rule from Jesus. Okay, this second one is volume control, the one we wished we had with our children. So, when you talk to somebody, have you noticed that when you're upset, the tone of voice goes up? So what you'd like to do is to tone down your voice and just tone it down. Just come down with the tone of voice. Just come down with the intensity that you are expressing. Does not mean that you cannot sometimes express something with vigor, but usually Jesus did that. But usually that is done with a lot of self-control and specific strategic knowledge of why I'm saying this, what I'm saying. In the moment, we really have that wisdom and insight, but you can develop it. But usually you'd like to just come down a few notches. It's immediately. So just turn down your volume. If you're calm and you're more rational with your emotions, you'll see that the other person will respond in the same way. If you're going to yell and scream, guess what? They're going to yell and scream back. Okay, so it's a wonderful way to do it. So once you realize yours or the other person's volume is up, now you don't tell your partner, turn down your volume. If it's a joke, you can maybe grab the remote and say, I just want to turn down my volume, and bring some humor into the conversation. That already also just relieves everybody as to think of something funny. But as soon as the discussion begins to escalate, you want to de-escalate it. Now, the other day I was in a conversation and a nerve was hit, like a painful, deep emotion from years ago. And then you need to leave because you're going to crack or whatever. So that's also what I did. So it's not always so simple just to lower the volume, but once you realize you're escalating, you also need to. That's where you want to work towards. Now, obviously, you're going to make mistakes, and you're not going to get this thing perfectly right. Not the first time, neither the second time, but practice here brings progress, not perfection, progress. Okay, the third one you can do is mute. I love mute with a TV. And mute is a wonderful thing, because what it does is it just gives you a chance to step back and just say, I'm not going to talk now. I'm going to listen. Now, some people use it as a way of frustrating the other person. They're not going to ever react. But you rather say, let me just be quiet and think before I'm going to act here. So you put yourself on mute. You can't put the other person on mute. Quiet now. Give me a moment to talk. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so hitting mute is helpful, okay, because that also helps you to listen to your partner. Because if you're just going to talk, that other person will also just shut down. And if you're struggling with de-escalating your volume, or you're coming across too strongly, just mute. The best way. And you'll need to just maybe even physically step back a few steps and just think of how you're going to respond. The word talks about responding in love, responding with kindness. Some Christians have said responding in the opposite way. So it takes training to say it's better to be quiet now and just to wait. And once you've let the other person calm down, many a times that helps you as well. Once you've calmed down, the other person also calms down. The fourth thing you'd like to do is press record. That's not because you want to have a court case against them. I'm recording you, okay? No, you know those irritating people on Twitter and everybody, not Twitter, TikTok. In any case, everything's recorded these days, even this. But it means attentive listening. So rather with the intent of hearing, not with the intent of trying to figure out how you're going to reply and getting your guns ready. No. So it is a way to manage your emotions, is to say, let me get into that person's frame of reference. Let me listen to what they're saying. Because it also clarifies misunderstandings, and it helps you to understand their situation better. And, I have found that I need to listen to my clients, listen to other people, and when I've listened, it has clarified a lot of things for me. And then when I respond with a lot more wisdom, because I see things differently than what I did before. And misunderstandings are sidestepped and those things. Okay, so try not to judge them and not to offer advice as you're listening. It's It's thinking, it's what you're going to focus on is how that person is feeling, why they're upset, how they are seeing you, how they see themselves, how they see the situation. You gain more information. It's like the army that gathers intel. Now that you're not in a war, you're just gathering intel so that you can make love, not war. Okay, make peace, peace, man. So you can make peace. That's also what the Lord wants, is for you to love one another. Okay, the fifth skill here is rewind. So when you're in an emotionally charged discussion, and there's deep-seated stuff, I mean, old things will probably spring up, old unfinished business stuff. And so what you need to do is sometime when you're calmed down, you need to rewind. And that's what I talked about earlier. Ask yourself, where does this come from? What is the root of this? What's my part in this? What's the other person's part? Where, when, and how has this happened? And how can I approach this more effectively next time? So you prepare yourself. It's almost like for a speech or whatever you're going to say. You prepare yourself before you go into that conversation. That gives you much more emotional control. If you go unprepared, impulsively into a conversation of conflict, be aware you're going to step on landmines, you're going to explode yourself. But if you, let's say you go in there and you use other skills, like skills that contains the situation, like opening with a positive comment of your intention, a positive intention, or even an apology, or you express your thanks, you acknowledge the person, that also helps the other person to lower their guard. They're more open to what you have to say, and they listen to you. Then the sixth skill that Inc. has here is fast forward. I love this. Sometimes when you fast forward, you skip a whole lot of scenes to the end. But what happens here is you're actually thinking of action and consequence. So you're thinking, if I'm going to do this, this is what's going to happen, and this is how it is going to play out. We tell that to addiction clients as well. Think of how horrible you're going to feel, and you're going to feel guilty and sit there with this and this and that, because that makes the appeal of this whole impulsive act very, it takes away some of the appeal. But it also helps you to forget about how you're feeling now. How will this affect me in my marriage in a week's time, in a year's time, in 5 years' time? What is going to happen? It gives you the bigger picture. Your thoughts are clearer. You make better decisions. And the last skill in this 7-step series, or 7 skills, is slow motion. You slow down. So intense emotions like anger, frustration, fear, sadness, those things, if you leave them unchecked, they have a habit of growing and getting babies and all those things. So they are like black mambas. If you've seen a snake pit or something where they take out a snake's nest, there can be like 100 snakes that come out of there. It's a bit, but I've seen videos with that, lots of snakes. So it's the same with these emotions. So it's important, just as you're slowing down a movie or a song or whatever, that you take that time out to analyze what's going on. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling here? This, and I need to address these things one by one. You can't make a blanket forgiveness for 30 people. I'm forgiving all of you. Yes, that's the first step. Sometimes you need to address individual forgivenesses. I'm forgiving you for this and this and that. Go and check out Bruce Wilkinson's 70 times 7 series on forgiveness. Very good, from Teaching Every Nation. So you address forgiveness. You address it because it's a decision that you make to act differently now on certain feelings that you've got, that other people did stuff that hurt you. Okay, so it's a way to now also prepare you for the next time you're going to see them, because you've already decided that I felt this, you've acknowledged your feelings, you've spoken about it, you've written about it, you've prayed about it, you've listened to the Lord, you've received inputs from the Lord, and now and from Christian friends. Now you're deciding to let it go, and you're deciding how you're going to treat them as well. That's where the blessing comes in. You're blessing them. It's a way of differently approaching the situation. So It's a wonderful way of just slowing down. Okay, so the 7 skills, just to recap, just going to recap the skills for you. So it's pause, volume control, mute, record, rewind, fast forward, slow motion. So those are the 7 skills. I've seen that an hour is now reached, but I'm going to still give you the biblical picture of what is the biblical picture on this. So Colossians 3 verse 15 tells us that we should be led in by peace in making decisions. And not so it's important not to let your emotions just guide you in decision making, although they are important in figuring out that something is wrong. I said that last time. But your mind says, your values now say, but the Lord wants me to act in wisdom. Wisdom says, wait. Emotions say, hurry up. So we just want to say, wait. It's always better to listen. You listen 2 times as much as you talk. That's why you got 2 years. But you take more time. We are emotional beings, and it's important that we remember that we are part of God's creation. He is emotional, like I said last time, and we're also emotional. And but it's important to remember the truth that I said last time. If you think biblically, you'll have biblical emotions. That is also very important. So when you're in prayer, ask the Lord whether you are viewing this situation from His perspective. Because when you view it in His perspective, immediately the wisdom comes, the Holy Spirit is there, and you have peace. And that is especially with anger. And then with rejection, is to view it in His way, and then to check it with another fellow person that has wisdom, serves the Lord. What do you think? What are you hearing here? How do you view the situation? Now you can ask somebody else as well, so that you can get inputs from the outside. It's not just your mind giving you the last say, And just to remember that you are still battling with sin, and that sin has been overcome by Jesus. So once you've received Him and you've given your life to Him, and your sins are forgiven and you've repented of those, that means you've turned to the Lord, away from that way of living on your own, independent of God. You've realized you're dependent on Him. You come to Him. You give your life to Him. You receive His Spirit. That is wonderful. Then obviously His words become life to you. And now you want to live under the control of the Holy Spirit. You don't just want to live under your own control. So that's what the word talks about, being filled by the Holy Spirit. And that is recognizing your emotions, talking to the Lord about it, and submitting your choice then, and how you're going to do this, that you're going to react the way He wants you to react. And then He will guide you. So in the Psalms, you see King David, many a times feeling very upset, feeling hurt, lonely, afraid, angry. And he comes to the Lord and he pours out his complaint. Sometimes he even fights with God. So it's not as if your venting is sometimes it's a bit messy, but it is clear, and you're talking to Him. But then he also starts to listen, and he receives the Lord's words. Even if there's a rebuke, he receives that. And then he talks to himself. He sometimes even rebukes himself and says, no, hope in God, my spirit. Why are you so downcast within me? Come on, man. So it is about being honest with yourself and honest with the Lord. So no use not acknowledging it. Nay. And then another area that is important here is to remember that we need to feed our minds. So that's where you're going to get the truth. So what I've learned from a psychological perspective is to reconsider my thinking, to not have to be accurate and rational, and not over exaggerate it, or in magnifying issues and blaming others, those things. And I've spoken about that a lot. And then, but with the Christian views, to feed yourself with the Lord's word, so that you can grow in wisdom. How does God want me to manage finances, conflict, marriage, children? And if you grow in His way, that anchors you in the value, which then guides your decision making. So by the time you react on your emotions, your heart is committed to the value. Doesn't mean you're going to get it right all the time, but that's how you grow. Now let's look at Jesus. I came across an article that I just want to share with you. It was wonderful in using an example to just show how Jesus used emotion management. Now, he openly cried, he wept, the messy cry. He felt compassion for people. He was intensely compassionate. He had righteous anger. He displayed his frustration. So there was a wonderful example in the word, and you'll see it in Luke 9 or Matthew 17, verse 16, or Mark 9, verse 18, the wonderful transfiguration on the mountain. The three of the disciples see Jesus in his true spiritual glory. Any case, they come down the mountain. There's this father that comes to Jesus and he says, geez, I've begged your disciples to drive this demon out of my child, but gee, they cannot. And instantly Jesus vents and he lets out this very strong emotional reaction. And he says, oh, unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I stay with you and put up with you? Gee, it sounds quite harsh. But why is he saying that? Now let's look at this. It conveys his frustration with their lack of faith in God the Father. And he's talking to the crowd, he's talking to his disciples, he's talking to the Father probably. He's frustrated. He says, how long shall I put up with you? And what he does now is he's addressing the object of the frustration, what he is frustrated with. Can you hear that he's rebuking them? He is talking about how long shall I stay with you and put up with you. It's his frustration. He's communicating his frustration. And he vents, he says, you're unbelieving. This is what you're doing. This is what is frustrating me, is your unbelief. And it is testing my patience. And he is allowing himself to express his frustration. That is an example. You can express your frustration. It is not thumping and blaming and degrading them into the ground. It is rebuking disciples. The context of a disciple is somebody that allows themselves, like a teacher and his pupils, allows himself to be shaped by this person. I remember my professor sometimes being very strong in his approach to break certain things out of me. We call it strategic impacting. So he was strategically hitting me hard with certain words so that I can be shaken out of my ineffectiveness. And this is what Jesus was also doing here. And then he dealt with the situation. He said, bring your son here. And he, by the power of the Spirit, he took control and authority over this situation. But Jesus spoke to the disciples afterwards. They asked him why were they not able, and he said, but you did not have faith. You had little confidence in God's ability to do this. So what you're seeing here is that in this conflict situation, you need to sometimes express your emotions. So you let off a little bit of steam, sometimes by addressing that situation. Now, Jesus, being the ultimate example here, his control was of a higher level than ours. So we need to still grow there. So if you're not there where you can let off steam in a controlled way, you know you're not going to express it in an screaming match and cause a lot of fear in the children around you and fear in the animals. You see that, those animals that run away. If you're going to do that, that's not Jesus' example. So what you'd like to do here is you'd like to still remember grace. So he was not so angry that he chased them away. He addressed the situation, actually healed the child. So what you'd like to just see is in the how he did it. Okay, so it's not that it wasn't just a blaming statement. Okay, so sometimes there is, how long shall I put up with you, Okay, by the way of this, it's important for us because we tend to fight with others when we're expressing our emotions. That's why when a child says, I hate this teacher or whatever, I'd rather go to, what is it? I'm intensely frustrated with this thing that they are doing or this thing that is happening. this situation. Rather pinpoint the reason why you're upset and the feeling that's associated with it than pinpointing it to the person. Now, it's very easy to pinpoint it to the person because it feels so good and it's righteous and it's you. No, it is. It's better to rather do that because it also lowers your resentment and gives you more control. Okay, so you describe your feelings and what your frustration is really about. And then the second part of Jesus here is that he's working on that immediate situation. So he's finding a solution there for that situation. So once we've spoken about our emotions and we've vented it and it's been listened to and affirmed, if we've discussed it, I don't like to use the word vent because vent seems like I'm just letting rip. No, it's a controlled talking about it. And then we look at the needs of people around us and our need, and we figure out what the dilemma is, and we solve the needs, and we look for a solution, rather than going into this fighting mode and looking for guilty parties. It's rather empathic listening and then going into past that place of just blaming into a more of a place where you are listening to each other and you're expressing it. I don't think it's always wise to address it right there at that point of conflict. That's why I tend to withdraw sometimes, and I found that in my case to be a bit more a wiser approach. And then later, at your time, discuss the episode and brainstorm through things and break down the problem and use it as a growth place. So that's what Jesus also did. He explained that it was their lack of faith in the Lord, and used it to teach them, and that's how they can grow. So it is it is wonderful that at this point, the Lord actually showed us. That's one of the ways we can see expressed intense emotion, and sometimes he expressed intense sadness as well. And he cried. So he was, even in public, he showed his sadness. It wasn't that he was always sad, but he allowed himself to sometimes express it. You're not a failure if you allow yourself to cry or allow yourself to show feelings. My family members, some of them have such a beautiful way of expressing their emotions and allowing them. It brings depth and realness, transparency into a relationship. It's beautiful. If you show your guilt, show your pain, show your things. Now, I'm not saying in a dangerous situation where emotionally dangerous, the other person is so stubborn and angry and hostile. No, but in a where you can grow relationships, you allow yourself to show how you are feeling. Also positive feelings, express that acknowledgement, express the love. Did you know that it is assertive to give a compliment? It is assertive to show love, to express your gratitude, your love, and your kind feeling towards that person. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this. I enjoyed this. Open up your heart. Let the emotion connect with the other person. I had to really learn this. I was so closeted. But I'm so glad I can express it and say what I'm feeling and thinking. It makes for genuine relationships, and it relieves emotions, and emotions now actually strengthen the other person as well. So that's a wonderful thing, isn't it? Now I've got so much more to say, all as always, and eventually I hope to have an emotional intelligence course as well up and running. But next time I'm going to talk about anger management, and I do hope you can join us. And remember to subscribe and to share. It's been wonderful spending time with you. Thank you for joining me. God bless. Until next time then, see you. Goodbye.